What's going on, guys? Zach Brunner here from Flurry Sports. Let's talk about Dynasty Fantasy Football rookie rankings. We know where all the rookies were drafted to. We know where these teams are strong at, weak at. We know what's going on now. So I think it's as good of a time as any to talk about these Dynasty rankings. A lot of you will be doing your rookie draft right now, maybe this weekend. Maybe you'll wait a little bit closer to the new league year. But hey, I think it's as good of a time as any to talk about these rookie rankings. And Dynasty is a very different beast, right? These rankings are for PPR, but even still, everyone's ranking these guys very differently this year. It was a weird draft class. And then on top of that, you may be stacked at quarterback. You may be stacked at running back, but you're desperate for wide receiver. Or you need a quarterback really badly, but you're stacked everywhere else. Depending on what your team needs, what you are going to be doing in your Dynasty draft could be very different. So don't just look at my rankings and be like, hey, Zach's got this guy above this guy. I need to go that. Ask questions below. You can ask questions to me on Twitter. You can ask questions wherever. But I'm going to give some thought process, some of what I am currently thinking. I'm breaking it down into tiers, which is good because really players within the same tier can be shuffled up, down, wherever to fit your specific needs. And it gives you an idea of, hey, I got 4 players on the board. I like them all. They're all in the same tier. Maybe I move back a couple spots and still take somebody within the same tier, gain more draft assets. Bada bing, bada boom. You know what I mean? Lots of strategy goes into Dynasty Fantasy Football. We can talk about all of that at a later date. If you have any questions, again, please, first off, subscribe. You made it here already. Definitely subscribe. We have a lot of fantasy content coming on this channel. I don't want you to miss it, so definitely subscribe. And then ask anything below. I'll be jumping into reading every single comment and answering them all. So let's jump into the rankings. Those are going to be listed down below as well, linked on my site. So you can check them out there if you would like to read them instead of listening to me. Don't blame you. I get it. But also linked down there is this. games.flurrysports.org, something I've created and something we're really building out right now. Still in the beta version, but I would love for you to try this out and tell me what works, what doesn't work, what's good, what's bad. Every single day, we got new sports games for you to play. Think Wordle, right? You log in, you get a new Wordle puzzle every single day. You log into, you get the new crossword puzzle every single day. What we got here on games.flurrysports.org, these are the daily games right now. We're going to have at least one more added on to it. But we got a daily trivia quiz, multiple choice quiz, timed. Obviously, you answer correctly in less time, you get more points, vice versa. Snap decision. This is one of my favorite ones. So you get a defensive play. You got to call your offensive play very quickly. Got to call the correct play to gain yards. If you get a stalemate, no points. If you lose, then your drive is done. Get 4 and you score a touchdown. Clean sweep. You're given a prompt such as name every coach, or click on every coach listed that won coach of the year before, or maybe click all of the NBA Finals MVPs. You know what I mean? And you got to try to get a clean sweep. You got to try to get them all. But if there's 5 correct ones, you only know 4. You don't want to risk your points. You can cash out. You can take the points that you've earned. But if you get a clean sweep and you name them all without naming any incorrect, that'll get you the most points possible. And then who's that player? You are given a mystery player. And every single hint you get less points when you guess it correctly. But if you can guess it correctly on the very first hint, then you get max points. But again, we're adding more games. If you don't like some of these games, definitely let me know. We're building them out. Play 7 days in a row, and then you're on fire. You get 10% extra points, and you earn points for the leaderboard. Please come. Try to knock me off. Try to beat me. We'll do a hard reset on the leaderboard. This isn't final, so you're not necessarily catching up. But definitely come and compete. Obviously, we got different leaderboards for the different games as well. But then we also got other quizzes as well, too. And these you can play as much as you want. So log in, play as many as you would like, share them with your friends, compete with your friends. The daily games is one and done. You got to come back the next day to play the next one. And eventually, we're going to have some prizes. We're going to have more games. We're going to have all kinds of good stuff. So definitely go be one of the first people to play these games. Games.flurrysports.org. And again, It's in beta. Definitely let me know what's good, what's bad, what needs to be fixed, and I would deeply appreciate it. Now, let's jump into these dynasty rankings. What do you say? So, number one, 101, heading into the NFL draft, we knew who it would be, regardless of where he went. And then Jeremiah Love was drafted to the Cardinals, and we're like, oh my God. Okay, well, the Cardinals have 4 running backs now. What the hell's going on here? I get it. It was a terrible landing spot. But what I will say is he is still in a tier of his own. He's clearly the 101, no matter the format, no matter the scoring settings. Jeremiah Love's the 101. He's the highest paid running back in the NFL, especially with running backs. Trust the contract, trust the money. Jeremiah Love may not get off to the fastest start in his career because the offensive line could use a little bit of work. The offense overall could use a little bit of work. And then he's also going to split time with Tyler Algier, maybe James Conner. I don't think Trey Benson, but you never know. So, and to be honest, that just means good long-term value for Jeremiah Love. His career shouldn't be shortened. He shouldn't be, all the tread on the tire shouldn't be worn off on a bad team, right? We're in for the long haul. He should still be pretty good this year, but probably closer to a RB2 than an RB1. But, talk about second contract. He should get that second contract, and he should be very good then as well. So, next up, let's talk about tier 2. Who is in my tier 2? We got a bunch of wide receivers, but I do think it extends further past the wide receivers. I personally believe. Okay, good job, Fantasy Pros. Okay, so my tier 2 consists of. Do I actually have that backwards? I do. My bad. Let's do it like this. Okay, so my tier 2 consists of Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Makai Lemon, Jadarian Price, Fernando Mendoza. I nailed all the pronunciation there. Spoiler alert, and trigger warning, maybe. I'm going to be mispronouncing some names. It is what it is. But these are my tier 2 players here. Wide receivers, I think, are better than the quarterback and the running back, right? And Jordan Tyson's my pick. I think he has some injury concerns. I think, character concerns, maybe. I think that's lesser so. But I do think he's the most talented of the 3 wide receivers, and drawing attention away from Chris Olave, or rather Chris Olave draws attention away from him. If he's getting the second best cornerback in a lot of games and in the NFC South, I think he's going to have a very successful career opposite of Olave. When Olave gets hurt, he should soak up even more targets. I think Tyler Shuck's a decent quarterback, and he can grow along with him. So he is my wide receiver 1 in this draft class. Carnell Tate, to be completely honest, I think they have pretty good wide receivers there. I'm a big Wan'Dale Robinson fan, so I do think Carnell Tate comes in and is the wide receiver 1, but I don't think it's like he needs to get his 8 to 10 targets, right? I don't think he's that type of player. I'm still out a little bit on Cam Ward. I don't dislike him, but I need to see more of him as a passer. I do like Dayball. I love that Dayball's running the offense, but guess what? If Dayball does as good of a job as I think he can do, Dayball's not going to be there for very long either. So I hate that. But Carnell Tate is still a very good football player. His calf injuries in college concern me a little bit, but he's still my wide receiver 2 here. And then Makai Lemon, good slot player. I think he does a lot of great things for the Eagles. I'll talk about Eli Stowers in a little bit. I think Eli Stowers can play a little bit of slot as well. But overall, Makai Lemon should play in the middle of the field. He should be the slot. He should soak up a bunch of targets. Still, he's going to be fighting for targets and touches and all of the above in that Eagles offense. He's a very good football player. He might be the safest of the 3 wide receivers, but he has the lowest ceiling without a doubt. Now, RB1 in this draft class, he is in this tier 2, 5th overall for me, Jadarian Price. He goes to Seattle, and I think he's a decent player. I don't think he's the second best running back in this draft class. Excuse me, as it sounds like my dog may possibly be tearing my roof off, but I'll ignore it for now. Jadarian Price, though, obviously Zach Charbonnet is fighting his way back from a knee injury, ACL. He probably doesn't start the year healthy, right? Emmanuel Wilson's there. I think Emmanuel Wilson's a very good running back as well. He's not a good he's a good rusher at running back. Emmanuel Wilson doesn't do much else well, but he's a good rusher. Jadarian Price, I think, is going to have a significant role. I mean, he's a first-round draft pick, and I think he's going to be just fine. He does not blow me away. He shouldn't blow you away. But if you are competing this year and you need a running back, if you need a flex, that's what I think Jadarian Price is. If you're going to long-term ad, I wouldn't be going Jadarian Price. But if you need someone to help you this year, get your team over the hump, I think that's the type of player he can be. And then Fernando Mendoza. This is a very polarizing player for fantasy, I feel like, or at least for Dynasty. People are ranking him all over the place. All over. And I'm in a rookie draft right now. We are at the end of the first round. 12-team, single quarterback league, PPR. Pick 11's coming up, and Fernando Mendoza is still on the board. So it's very interesting. What I will say, he's not a player you can get instant gratification from. He's not going to start year one. He'll probably end up playing at some point, not necessarily because Kirk Cousins does poorly, but I think the offensive line is going to get Kirk Cousins hurt. The Raiders don't have receiving talent other than Brock Bowers, really, right? But Mendoza doesn't have physicals that blow you away. But I do think mentally he's very good. And the Kubiak system is kind of like the Pat Shurmur system, where it babies quarterbacks, and all you got to do is throw it to the open guy. Once they have the receivers and the offensive line to do so, just throw it to the open guy and make the right read, know what you're doing, learn to play football. And I think that's where Fernando Mendoza thrives. So I think long-term, I think he's going to be damn good. Like, I think he can do the job exceptionally well, right? We've seen a lot of Shanahan quarterbacks Shanahan's similar. Shanahan, Kubiak, similar systems. They've all done decently well. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen Matt Ryan have an MVP year. I don't think Matt Ryan's exceptionally good. We've seen Brock Purdy have great years. I don't think Brock Purdy's exceptionally good. Call it a system quarterback, call it whatever you want. Mendoza can absolutely do that. It's just not going to be year one. So if you can put him on a taxi squad the entire year, I love getting him. I also like getting another quarterback that we will talk about. But he is that final player in that tier 2 for me. So, tier 3. Starting off with Concepcion, it goes 4 deep. It goes to Denzel Boston. Might as well bring that up, eh? So we got 2 Browns, 2 Jets. What a gross tier, but I got to say these are players who I like. They just didn't have the greatest landing spots. So Concepcion is a slot wide receiver. He should be the quarterback's best friend there in Cleveland, no matter who the quarterback is. He gives the quarterback an easy throw. And that is not something that the Browns have really had. Jerry Jeudy, he runs deep, gets covered, doesn't do anything. He gets lost in the play, right? Denzel Boston, he's a great outside wide receiver. I like him as a talent, but he's an outside wide receiver, and he'll probably run deep and get lost in several plays. Or at the very least, if he gets open, do you trust the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns to make the right read, to be patient, to make a good throw? It takes a lot for Denzel Boston to have the more successful year. Skill-wise, can he do it? Yes. Ceiling-wise, his ceiling's higher than Concepcion, but Concepcion is just an easier target underneath. I still think he's a very talented football player. So he tops my tier 3. He's 7 overall. Denzel Boston would be 10 overall. Now we get to the Jets, guys. Again, Omar Cooper can play all over the offense. I think he's a very solid wide receiver. He doesn't really blow me away in any situation, but he does everything pretty darn good. So again, if he's operating as the wide receiver 2 there with Garrett Wilson drawing coverage away, I think he could be pretty darn successful, and he's a player Geno Smith will use. He's my number 8, and he's ahead of Kenyon Sadiq. However, we talked about it in the very beginning. All these players in the tier, no matter what you need, or even if you just like somebody a little bit more, feel free to shuffle these tiers around. Kenyon Sadiq is a tight end, right? If you are desperate for a tight end, and I will say that future draft classes, 2027, exceptional draft class coming in, not overly strong at tight end. So if you are not going to compete this year whatsoever, maybe Kenyon Sadiq's your pick, man. Or maybe Eli Stowers, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But Next year, you'll be able to get good quarterbacks, good running backs, good wide receivers. I don't know if you're going to get a great tight end. So that's where Kenyon Sadiq could trend up a little bit for me if you're thinking ahead. But overall, Kenyon Sadiq was built in a lab to play football, to play tight end, right? On paper, exceptional. He's a good blocker, a willing blocker. So he's a 3-down tight end. I love that. He gets drafted to a team that just drafted Mason Taylor, who is very talented and he has NFL blood, right? So I don't love that, but that still doesn't even really throw me off of him. The reason he's behind Cooper for me is that he did not produce in college. He was fine in college, but he was on a good offense that should have been able to feature him and get him the ball much more, and they just didn't. And to me, that's a red flag. I like Kenyon Sadiq. I would love to get Kenyon Sadiq on at least one of my Dynasty teams this year. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not saying he's a bad pick, but the lack of production in college, no matter who the player is, always is a red flag to me. So that's why he is at 9 and Cooper is at 8. Now, tier number 4. This is a fun tier for me. I do like this tier. These next few tiers are fun. So, tier 4, we got Jonah Coleman, Eli Stowers, Dejon Stribling, Jeremy Bernard, and then Ty Simpson. We will cap it right there. Jonah Coleman, I think, is better than Jadarian Price. I'll just say that. Plain and simple, I think he's a better football player. Price has the bigger opportunity, without a doubt, right? However, if you have a taxi squad, if you are in a position that you can be patient, I think Jonah Coleman can be a very, very good football player in Sean Payton's offense. To make a lazy take, a lazy comparison, I think he could be Mark Ingram, right? Mark Ingram, exceptional football player, tons of NFL success. I'm not going to try to make a one-to-one comparison, but I will say Jonah Coleman can be a power runner. He can be a plotter. He can do all of that, but he's a decent receiver as well. Like, I think he can do Mark Ingram-like things in a Sean Payton offense. And I think he complements RJ Harvey pretty well. And if RJ Harvey gets hurt, I think Jonah Coleman is just as good of a receiver as RJ Harvey. After the catch, I don't think he's as good, but I think he runs good routes. I think he's a good pass protector. I think he can catch the football. But he also complements RJ Harvey because I think he can be that power runner. So if J.K. Dobbins goes down hurt, or when J.K. Dobbins goes down hurt, I think Jonah Coleman will be able to step in and play pretty well. So I think he's a pretty safe pick, and I think it's very clear he's in the Broncos' long-term plans. I don't think he helps you as much in 2026 as Jadarian Price, but long-term wise, I like him quite a bit. Eli Stowers, I love quarterbacks who convert to tight end, because to play tight end, you're playing multiple positions essentially. You need to know how to play football. You need to know what's going on the field. The best tight ends really understand football, and that's what Eli Stowers is. That's 1. 2, he's very athletic. 3, he's on an offense that wants to use a tight end. And 4, Dallas Goedert's back on a 1-year deal. So I do think Eli Stowers is going to be a great dynasty pickup. But again, not for this year. You have to be patient on this tier, this entire tier. Tier 4, if you are able to put one of these players in your taxi squad, you're feeling very good. Dejon Stribling gives the 49ers a Mike Evans-like talent package, right? Physical package, all of the above. The issue is they have Mike Evans. So he's probably not going to be a very strong contributor this year, but if/when Mike Evans goes down, that's where Stribling can fit in. Jeremy Bernard. He is the wide receiver 3 on a Steelers offense that desperately needs a wide receiver 3. But could Michael Pittman be gone very quickly, after a year or two? Absolutely. Sit and wait on Jeremy Bernard. And then Ty Simpson. Does Ty Simpson have that much lower of a ceiling than Fernando Mendoza? I don't think so. I think he's a worse player, but I don't think he's that worse of a player. I don't think he's as good mentally, but I think he's better. He's going to be better coached, and he has a better situation. I would rather have the quarterback, under Sean McVay throwing to Puka Nacua. Devonta Adams is there, probably not for that much longer, right? But I trust the Rams to have a good offense, and I trust the Rams to get more talent. And I like Terrence Ferguson. He gets to throw to him as well. So I do think Ty Simpson's pretty good, but again, you got to sit him in your taxi squad and wait at least a year. Maybe next year he's the starter. Maybe he's the starter in 2 years. Clearly, the Rams have plans for him to be that starter, and I think that is a great pickup. I think that's a great pickup. The next year, when everyone's going after quarterbacks, maybe you have the best quarterback with Ty Simpson. Never know. Never know. Not best overall, but he'll essentially be a rookie, right? And you may have the best rookie. Tier 5. Okay, big tier. And these are all players who are competing with other people for touches, but I do like their talent. So let's go to there. So we got Antonio Williams, Chris Bell, Zachariah Branch, Chris Brazel, Elijah Surratt, Jacoby Lane, Mike Washington Jr., Katron Allen, and Ted Hurst. Again, these are all players who should see valuable snaps in their rookie season, but most of them are playing alongside an established player of the same position, or maybe they were a rookie drafted by another player of the same position. You know what I mean? So it limits their overall ceiling. For example, Antonio Williams joins a poor receiving core in Washington. He'll clearly be behind Terry McLaurin, but there really isn't that much there. There's really not that much there. They could go for Brandon Ayuk. That would bump him down a little bit. But he kind of needs to play snaps, right? Same thing with Zachariah Branch. Zachariah Branch is clearly behind Drake London, but he's given the green light to go win that wide receiver 2 job. And if he's the wide receiver 2 in that offense, I think he could be pretty solid for fantasy. His overall ceiling's lower, but I think he can be a contributor for you. Could any of these players can grow into a wide receiver 3 role for your fantasy team this year? Maybe a flex value, and then they have some potential going forward for something better as well. Not much else to say about that. They're all kind of in that same sort of. It's a similar situation for all of them. Ted Hurst, I really like Ted Hurst. He could clearly become a Mike Evans-like player in that offense. Not the same type of dominance, but he's a very good player. He can, produced extremely well in college. He's playing alongside Ibuka. There's Godwin there. There's, a good running game, hopefully. So he's not going to be the first or second choice on this offense, but he may be asked to play a lot of snaps. And if he's on the field for a lot of snaps with Baker Mayfield, he'll catch touchdowns. He'll get some yards. So very interesting player. Tier 6 will go until Demond Claiborne. Tier 6, these are players who can very clearly get a path to touches if someone ahead of them gets hurt or someone ahead of them gets traded. And these are all players who I somewhat like, or like a lot in some cases. So, for example, Malachi Fields, he's not likely to be the wide receiver 2 for the Giants this year, in my opinion. I think that is Darnell Mooney. However, would it surprise you if Darnell Mooney gets hurt? I mean, he was hurt all of last year. He could do it again. Another example, Emmett Johnson, running back for the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs really like this guy. He's playing behind Kenneth Walker. Could Kenneth Walker get hurt after his usage last year? Or, I mean, he's been banged up his entire NFL career, really. He plays through them. But if Kenneth Walker gets hurt, guess what? Emmett Johnson's going to have to play a lot of snaps. And so these are all value pickups. These are all sort of lottery tickets that could really vault up. I would say the one exception here, I think a lot of people have these guys in this similar ranking range and tier and stuff like that. I would say the one exception is Demond Claiborne. And I love this guy. I am a really, really big fan of Claiborne, except when I had him on my fantasy team last year. He was on my college fantasy team, and he was a great player. I drafted him early, always banged up. And I would imagine the same thing happens. But what I will say about him, no picture. I was hoping there'd be a picture. What I will say about him is he plays behind Aaron Jones and may be able to do Aaron Jones-like things. Regardless, I think he is going to be the complement to Jordan Mason going forward. I can't imagine Aaron Jones plays past a year more with the Vikings. So I think he's going to be in a timeshare, but I think he would be a very valuable player in that timeshare. He's kind of a scat back. He can break a big play from any point on the field. I like him quite a bit. And then this last year, I mean, there's a lot more fantasy players, right? So these are still players that I enjoy. Make no mistake about it. These aren't just like, and the rest. These are players I just think are interesting. They're worthy of picking up in the late rounds. They could do something. Some players are more interesting than others, given their landing spot. For example, Bryce Lance. I'm a fan of Bryce Lance. He's somewhat local for me. I'm a huge Trey Lance guy, but he's a big athletic dude. And the Saints need another receiver, really. Could he beat out Devon Vele? Yes. Could Chris Olave get hurt? And all of a sudden, Bryce Lance is the wide receiver too, behind Jordan Tyson. Yes. So someone like that's interesting. Kalen Black. Could Christian McCaffrey get hurt? I've seen that movie before, right? Carson Beck is behind Jacoby Brissett and the other guy. Can't remember his name right now. But Carson Beck drafted pretty early. I think they hope he can develop into that quarterback for them. I'm not a Carson Beck fan. I don't like him whatsoever, but he's worth a late round draft pick with the thought that he could be the starter for the Cardinals, throwing to Marvin Harrison, throwing to Michael Wilson, throwing to Trey McBride. Like whoever the starting quarterback there, they're in a decent situation. So if Carson Beck becomes that, he's relevant for fantasy. Eli Raridan, this is the guy who not a lot of people are talking about, but Hunter Henry is coming to the end of his career. The Patriots use a tight end. The McDaniels offense uses a tight end. Eli Raridan's going to try to be groomed to be the next tight end for the Patriots. So why not take him with your final draft pick? Like if he can become that, if you can draft him and put him in your taxi squad, shit, maybe he becomes that. Marlon Klein, I think he wants to be the tight end after Dalton. Ooh, he's got a picture. Interesting. He might be the tight end after Dalton Schultz, right? All these guys have opportunities to be something. Some more than others, but Carson Beck is interesting. Raridan's very interesting. Max Clare was drafted earlier than he should have been. I know a lot of Ferguson owners are definitely upset, possibly doing a fire sale. I prefer Ferguson going forward to Clare, but I do think Clare can be a decent blocker and lazy comparison, but maybe become the AJ Barner-like player for the Rams. Not year one, though. Not year one. But these are my Dynasty rookie rankings. Again, if you want to click the link below in the description, you can go to these rankings on flurrysports.org. So you can read more there and see these rankings there. While you're down there as well, once again, games.flurrysports.org. Definitely go check that out. Go play some games. Every single day, there's brand new games to play. So you might as well do it. Create your free account. Flex your brain. Share it with your friends. Flex your sports knowledge. Just prove that you're that much smarter, that much better than them. What's better than just being the best? You know what I mean? And you might as well go see if you can be the best, at least better than your friends, better than your family. And shit, if you think you're good enough, see if you're better than me. Never know. Doubt it, but you never know. Let me know if you have any fantasy questions in the comments below. And also, if you have any suggestions for more fantasy videos on this channel, let me know, and either I or somebody else on my team will do it. You know, brand new channel, all about fantasy football, something we haven't had before. Exciting. That's good. So if there's something you want to see and you vocalize you want to see it, pretty confident we're going to do it for you. So like the video, subscribe, please, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.